Hello YouTube, back once again with my film reviews, and another movie I saw recently is the latest big screen version of Sherlock Holmes called Mr. Holmes. Yeah, let's talk about it. Before I talk about this one, let me talk about like what I thought about like the more recent Sherlock Holmes big like entertainment wise the two movies with Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law, I thought were fine popcorn affair. Like, they're nothing great. I just thought they're okay. This is kind of a fun, stupid time. But that kind of pissed me off that they're kind of stupid on the grounds that they are Sherlock Holmes. I was like, I want to see a good mystery here or something more deeper than what I'm getting here. The BBC show with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman, I love that show. Benedict Cumberbatch just so great at being him as an ultimate smugness, and Martin Freeman always just such a charming actor. So I really love that show. And so I was really, and now there's this new film with Mr. Holmes, which I heard was a kind of a more different take on the whole Sherlock Holmes thing. So I did not know what to expect going into this one, and yeah, let's get into this now. The plot of this movie, it's about a much more older, much more frail Sherlock Holmes, played by Ian McKellen. He's in his 90s. He's long since retired. He's left Baker Street. Watson has long since been dead. There's no Watson in this movie. And what the main premise of the film, he's retired to the England countryside, and yeah, the main plot of this film is after Watson died, Sherlock Holmes finally read one of the books Watson had published about their adventures, about the last case Sherlock has ever partaked in before he retired from the business, which confuses Sherlock Holmes because A, Watson had left Baker Street by the time that case happened, and B, even though he can't remember specifically what really happened in the case, he just can't help but feel that the version Watson has published was not how it happened, and so what he's trying to do is, before he dies, because he knows he doesn't have that much time left before he dies, is he's trying to remember and write down, because his memory is fading because he's so old. He's trying to write down the actual account of what happened in that final case that made him quit the business. So yeah, that's the premise of the movie. Let's go to the good of this movie. One, Ian McKellen as Sherlock Holmes. It's Ian McKellen. What more can you say about Ian McKellen at this point that can be said? It is a masterclass performance, as always, from him. I really liked how Ian McKellen played this, because he has to switch between two ages. There's the current day Sherlock Holmes, which is like who's like a 93-year-old man, and he does a great job just seeing so frail and just like so fragile. I like the fact that even though he comes off as a much more older, much more like withered Sherlock Holmes, like, he still feels like Sherlock Holmes. Like, he still kind of like always wants to show he's the smartest man in the smartest man in the room, and he always wants to show that, like, he's always like keeps saying all these things, like he can still like solve read people, like tell where people have been by just looking at their clothing and their appearance, like, but he is more polite and more quiet. Like, he doesn't just like always try to like just like annoy people with how intelligent he is. He just kind of more keeps him to himself. So I love how he played that. But I also like how it showed. It also showed, because he had to play in flashbacks, he had to play a younger Sherlock Holmes, like 30 years younger, and even though he is kind of old at this point, as Ian McKellen is, he's still much more lively, much more like kind of like smug detective, and Ian McKellen just also did a great job just doing that. He's Ian McKellen, just a wonderful actor from Gaze and Idol. Fantastic performance as Mr. Holmes. Yeah, Ian McKellen as Mr. Holmes, I loved it. Both that, considering the fact he had to keep switching between two ages and like two completely different, like physical, like verbal, and just everything like wise, like of the character, did an amazing job. That Mila Parker as the young boy at his estate in his older age that he befriends. He was for such a young kid. He was incredibly cute and charming. He was never once annoying in this movie. He was just a great performance from such a young actor who was just amazing. Just for the fact he was able to hold his own against Ian McKellen was just amazing. I mean, how young this kid was and just how he had to stand with such a great actor as Ian McKellen, just trying to hold his own in every scene, because basically the only scenes he's in is with Ian McKellen. The fact he's able to hold his own and still be memorable next to Ian McKellen is fantastic. He did a wonderful job for a kid his age. I was really touched by the friendship that developed between him and Mr. Holmes. I really like the relationship and bond that you grow with each other. So, yeah, I love that. Another thing I love, which is probably the most polarizing thing about this movie, which has made some people say either they loved it or some people say they hated this movie. But I love this. This movie had a really great, somber, just laid back, relaxed feel from beginning to end. Like, there's no grand mystery to this film. Even when you see in his flashback as he starts to remember the case that makes him quit. Like, the case is not some grand super mystery. It was actually a pretty simple mystery. He just remembers that for some reason a great tragedy was connected to it, and yeah, so there's that. There's no action. There's no action. There's nothing grand. This is not at all the Jude Law or Robert Downey Jr. movies. Or to some degree even the BBC show. This is a very laid back and quiet movie, and I loved it for that. I know some people hate it for that because that's what they want to see in a Mr. Holmes movie, but I actually think the movie was better for just taking this route. It was a very interesting look at Sherlock Holmes. And for a movie, I think this movie only got a PG rating. This movie dealt with some pretty adult themes in it. Like, this film dealt with such for the fact, like I said, he's supposed to be an old, frail Sherlock Holmes that knows he's at the end of his life. It deals with such things as death, themes as death, like the need for companionship, how he just needs to admit need friendship, that there's also the idea of forgetting the past and losing your memories at that age. There's this really effective ongoing thing about how his memory is so bad at this point. He writes down the names of important people in his life on his sleeve so he doesn't forget them. Like I said, for Milo Parker, this character's name is Roger. They're just the scene he comes in, he's just Mr. Holmes, and he just has to look at his sleeve and just oh, hi, Roger. That was great. That was wonderful. Because when you really get down to it, this whole film is just about a man trying to accomplish the last goal he wants to, so he doesn't have to die with regret. And I really, really thought this is pretty amazing. They were dealing with such adult themes in a Sherlock Holmes movie. I was not expecting that. I thought it was great. And then I gotta say, for some of the mysteries of the plot, I thought they actually gave some really good answers to them. Basically one being what was the tragedy of the case and why what happened exactly that made Sherlock Holmes quit the business because of it. I found that really interesting. I also love the answer of why Watson's version of the story he published was so different from what actually happens. I really like the answer because they do give explanation to that, and I thought the answers were actually really good. That, and this movie was gorgeously shot. This is beautiful cinematography in the movie. It made the English countryside just look magnificent, and I love the final shot of the movie. I thought it was great. I thought this was just a gorgeous movie from beginning to end. So cinematographers did an amazing job in this film. There were some issues to this movie, though. Let's go to the bad. Laura Liddy, I think that's how you say the actress's name, as the Sherlock Holmes housekeeper in his countryside estate. It was not a bad performance. I feel kind of bad for her. She was just a pretty cliched, annoying character, just that mother who's just too protective of her son and wants her to follow in footsteps he doesn't want to, and doesn't want him to be friends with the only person that's showing him friendship in any way, that being Mr. Holmes. And so it wasn't her fault, but just for the fact that Mr. Holmes and the character of Roger were just very very like fleshed out, like gave like very three-dimensional character. She felt kind of bland and just kind of annoying, and you're like, I wish there was more of a deep character to this, but there really wasn't. That another issue with the movie was there's a Japan subplot in the movie because in the beginning of the movie it's supposed to be he returns to his estate in the beginning of the movie, and it's supposed to be he had just been traveling into Japan and back, and you keep seeing cuts to what happened there and why. It's pretty boring. I didn't care at all. I was way more interested in the current day of him at his estate and him just trying to write the story and the actual flashbacks of learning what exactly happened in that case. I found infinitely more interesting than that part of the movie. I just always just like, oh god, do we really have to go back to the Japan plot at the moment? It really doesn't add anything. It just really just meh. That and the final issue of the movie was the movie stretched on a bit too long. Like there's like one part of the movie when it feels like it's almost over, and then there's an event that happens with one of the characters that doesn't really lead to anything. Like it just happens, and then like it kills like another like 15 minutes. Then the movie ends, and my only thought was like, you didn't need that. You should have just cut 15 minutes earlier. But so that happened. But goods were way better than the bad. I know some people found this like a polarizing movie and did not like it for the fact it was just a very sad and laid back movie. That's what I loved about it, and that's why I'm going to give Mr. Holmes a very solid 4 out of 5. This is a great take on the Sherlock Holmes character. Way better than the Robert Downey Jr.'s and Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law movies. I thought this was just a great look at just a man who knows he's a legend trying to just being so different from what you would think. I love this movie. Had some issues, but I'm so happy I saw it. YouTube, as always, please subscribe, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye.